Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, and welcome to another video on Lord of the Rings, Heroes of Middle-earth. Now, if you watched some of my videos from yesterday, then today we're here to talk about light side characters. Now, we're here specifically to talk about some of the best characters in the game. Now, some of this might be a bit apparent because I've talked about, characters that I recommend and some of the ones that I think are the best that you should be building right now. But I kind of want to look at exactly why that is, because there is a reason, right? Other than that, some characters are just better than other characters. But, I like to look at numbers. And so we're going to be doing a bit of a stat deep dive on all of the light side characters, and we're going to be explaining exactly why it is I recommend specific characters. So if you're ready to go, everybody, then let's boil this down. And before we get into that really quickly, I want to kind of, let people know about this website that you may or may not be aware of. And that's LotR.GG, or LotRGG, but the link is LotR.GG. Also, it appears that the same people who are behind possibly Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, or SWGOH.GG as well. And from here, you can see kind of, all of the characters that are in the game. But what's really great about this, other than, the descriptions of the characters, and when you expand upon them, shows the character kits, but it shows their stats, and so they have a breakdown, an internal breakdown of all of the character stats in the game, and so that's what we're going to be using in today's video to describe, to help kind of analyze the light side characters. Now, we're going to be doing a future video, another video, part 2, about shadow characters as well, because I think this video would be really long if I ended up doing both of them in the same video. So we're just going to be doing light in this video here today, and also, also just shout out to Tana, another content creator for Lord of the Rings. He's also a fellow colleague of mine from Marvel Strike Force, who has done, you can see on this website actually, is that he's kind of organized some of the characters into tiers. So you might see this on the top right corner of some of the characters here that he has there as well. So you can follow that if you like, but I also, and I do largely agree with a lot of these picks. But I do want to kind of go into the actual stats as to why that is the case. Now, if you go over here on the corner, you click on characters and you click on stats, it actually brings up the stat tables for all of the characters in the game. Unlike the MSF version or the Marvel Strike Force version, it's not ranked by number. So even though it's obvious, it took me a little bit more time to kind of copy and paste this into the tables that we're going to take a look at, because, the organization is, I get kind of lost in the big long list, and so when I'm thinking of who's the 10th best, kind of that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, I'm like counting individually, so it takes a little bit of time. But I kind of want to draw your attention to this, and so I have this. For those of you who have followed me on Marvel Strike Force, you know that I do this kind of stuff quite frequently, and so this is going to be the Lord of the Rings home character stat table. Now, this in particular, the numbers aren't really that important. What's the most important on this, and that's going to be shared in this, is going to be their rating. And their rating is going to be benched against all of the characters in the game. So in this instance, it's not light versus light. It's light versus the entire roster, or these characters, versus the entire roster. And we're going to be doing the exact same thing on Shadow and how they stack up against each other. Now, for the numbers, though, it is adjusted to 5-star, level 40, and gear 6. Why is it like that? Because I feel like, because we're in global launch, I'm pretty close. I'm not 5-star on these characters, but I'm pretty close. Level 41, I have a handful of G6 characters at this point, and G5. And so this kind of gives you a realistic total of sort of what kind of stat numbers that you're going to be looking at going forward. So let's get started. First off, we need to talk about the Hobbits. I've talked about the Hobbits in my global launch video, my beginner's guide video, and they're not super great, but you start with them. And, a lot of the reasons why they're not that great, aside from their kit being very specific in this instance to Road to Rivendell and other Hobbits characters, is that they're quite squishy. So all of pretty much, with the exception of Sam, have some of the worst health ratings in the game. Now, this is going to be mirrored. We're going to talk about this when we get to the shadow side. These stats are very mirrored to the goblins. So goblins and hobbits share a lot of similar stats. They're also the fastest characters in the game. So you might notice that Frodo has a speed of 177, third highest in the game. Pippin has 172, is the 6th highest in the game. Merry is 171. He's the 7th highest in the game. So other people who are like in that top 10 and top 5 are the goblin characters. So that's why. They're smaller, they have higher speed, they have a lot less hit points, and they tend to be a lot squishier. You can see that their armor, top 30, top 35. So anything that's in the red isn't necessarily all that good. Things in the orange is average, and things in the green are good, or in some cases really good, depending on how good it is. So, Frodo's stats for damage, not very good. It's okay, top 25, so you'll get by using him early on in the game, and that's fine. But, Frodo does drop off, and most of the Hobbits do drop off, with the exception of Pippin, because I do use Pippin for my light side campaign. In fact, I have him at level 40, but that's more of a means to an end, because he is a pretty decent, easily accessible healer if you're free to play. So that's fine. And Frodo I took to about 30. It's 31. It's fine to do that. The cost of the characters really go up post 30. So it's okay to use, any character really up to level 30 for the campaign purposes, but I wouldn't really consider going much beyond that if, you don't need to. I would kind of leave them at 30 and then just focus on the ones that you are mainly focusing on in this aspect. So here's my roster, by the way, again, if you haven't really seen it, but I've shared this in other videos as well. But of course, every extra video, my account progress is going to get a little bit bigger. So let's jump back to this and let's talk about Pippin. So as a healer, Pippin actually does not have a very high health total, and it's a small problem, being that the heals are based on your max hit points. So just taking a look at Pippin specifically, his heal they do have like a flat extra healing on it, but it does do a percentage of. So heal all squad members for 500 plus 12% of this character's max health. That's ability level 3. You do get an additional 2% at level 4, but that percentage is going to be quite low because his HP total is not good. So the flat healing is actually in some ways better than the percentage. Like this one, level 5, I bet you that 300 healing is actually going to contribute more than that 2% of his total hit points, because it's not very good. You can see over here, this is at a 5-star level 40 gear 6. He has about 7,800 hit points, which is not good overall, but it's pretty average as far as the Hobbits go. He does have a really high focus and resistance, and his speed is really good though, for what it's worth. A lot of the support characters tend to have pretty high focus and resistance. Merry, I actually don't have any experience using Merry. I don't have him unlocked. I didn't buy the initial Hobbit pack because I started 2 weeks ago when I couldn't really spend. Sam, as far as a tank go, he's not even a tank. He's like a weird tank, because I don't think he has provoke or taunt. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments down below. His health and damage stats aren't terrible, and he is actually number 4 in armor. But so that would make you think that Sam is a good standalone character. With that being said, and maybe he is. Unfortunately, though, to get more stars beyond 3-star, that you need to do the special Sam event, which requires 4-star or higher on all of your Road to Rivendell characters. So it's quite a bit of legwork to kind of get Sam. Yeah. Rohan, though. Rohan is one of the best light teams. I've kind of repeated that ad nauseum. They are one of the best characters, best set of characters, and I'll show you, once again, the characters that I'm running on my team. And so that's the Rohan 3, and that's what I call them. Eothane, we're over there, Aon and Aomer. I don't know why the organization of the roster is kind of wonky. And then I use Strider, and then I use Ironhide Troll. I call him Ironhide Troll, Gaz Ironhide, as part of my arena team. So these 5 characters make up my arena. But the Rohan 3 are definitely really, really amazing. And their stats actually kind of show that for the most part, with the exception of Aowen. Her health and armor stats are not good. You might notice that because she's pretty squishy. If you're able to focus her down in arena, that she drops actually pretty quickly, and her health does not really show much for that either. But her focus is really good. You need that to land the ability block. Disable, I call it ability block as a Marvel Strike Force, and her speed is actually really, really good as well, which makes her go before a lot of the other characters. Eothane does his job pretty well. He's got top 10 health, top 5 armor, very good stats for a tank, and actually top 20 damage is pretty respectable as well for a tank. Now, he is a top 30 in speed at 146. Interestingly, the speed kind of breaks down pretty rapidly, because Eowyn is 169 at top 10, and then 123 down lower than that is top 30. So, yeah, there's a lot of characters sort of in between that range there. Eomer, on the other hand, he is very high health as well, and very high damage. Top 5 damage stat in the game. That is very impressive. His speed kind of sucks. He's like one of the slowest characters in the game. Now, I guess that kind of balances out the fact that his damage stat is so high, and so there's something there. But regardless, he's an easily accessible and easily farmable character, and so given that reason, that's another cement for his, popularity and why he's such a good character. Ealdred is the Rohirrim. I've been getting some corrections on that one. Rohirrim, healer, and as you can see, just like Pippin, his focus and resistance is a top 3, but the rest of his stats, not so good. Unfortunately, he's only available through gems as well. Wilfin, I'm going to butcher that one too. Anyways, that's the axe damage dealer on the team that you can kind of unlock later through Light Hard 4-1. Quite high damage stat, and I think that's really what she's there for. I don't have experience in using her, though. I typically just, use Strider in general in this place. I had a little bit some notes of the team. I did this a while ago. Eowyn is very speedy with a good ability block and has the Rohan leader trait, obviously. Actually, I said this standalone. Like, if you're not using the Rohan team at all, then you probably wouldn't use her. But now I am. And Eothane and Eomer is obviously a great power duo. So that trio of Eowyn, Eothane, and Eomer, very important. And they have turn bar mechanics, and I really like that. Let's talk about the Rangers a little bit, and those are some other characters here that are worth mentioning. Some of the characters down below don't really have a lot of synergy, and we'll be just kind of glossing over that. But the Rangers, Strider, Halbarad, Elrohir, Miri, and I wish that Faramir was out right now. So Strider, very balanced character for a freebie character. He's the one that you get, obviously, every single day as part of your your daily objectives. When you finish that, you get a free 5 shards for Strider. You also get shards for Strider as you go through the quest line as well. So I have him currently at 4-star already, about 2 weeks in, and, he's really great. His stats show that as well. So we'll take a look at that. He has a top 15 health, top 10 damage, which is really impressive considering he has a really good AoE that hits everybody with increased critical hit rate. His armors, the rest of his stats are still pretty respectable, and he's got a top 15 speed stat as well. So he does go before a lot of other characters in the game. Halbarad, one of the more premium characters because he's only in the challenge store, very hard to get free to play, but if you do buy him, then that's a completely other story. His health is through the roof. He does have a heal ability, so that makes his healing very, very strong because it's often based, just like Pippin, based on his max hit points. So Halbarad is going to do that really, really well. What I am a little bit disappointed of is that his tanking capabilities, which is his alt, is not so good. He actually has one of the lowest armor ratings in the game. So that's awkward because he is the leader, he heals, and he kind of tanks. And so he's better at the healing than he is at the tanking. So I would be cautious if you're someone who uses Halbarad. Maybe you want to be careful about when you're going to decide to use that tank ability. That being said, he has the best health in the game. So I guess that's why his armor stat is not that high. The rest of it is pretty normal as well. Nothing to really talk about that. Elrohir, don't have much experience with him in this version of the game, but he is a ranger as well. He's a damage dealer type character. Kind of sad that his damage is only top 25. It's not super impressive, but he does have a number 4 speed in the game, so that's very impressive there. Miri, which is the other, I guess, was a minion character actually. Top 10 speed. The rest of it's pretty average. I wish that we had Faramir because I think this would round out this team very well because you would have Strider, Halbarad, Elrohir, Miri, and Faramir. I think it would be a very strong 5-person team, but alas, we do not have him yet, but maybe we will in the future. Elves. I'm going to pretty much skip over this right now because it's an incomplete team. There is Elrohir who also doubles as an elf, but he's also a ranger, so there's 4 elves that are out right now, but we're missing quite a few. We're missing... I forget his name. Elrohir's brother, I think it's like Elrond, but he's the dude with the spear, and he's a tank. And then obviously we don't have Elrond, we don't have Arwen, so there's a lot of missing characters in the elf team, unfortunately. Some shout-outs here is that Lomian has number 5 speed in the game. And the healer, the elf healer, is actually not so bad. Top 10 focus and speed, and focus and resistance, and top 15 in speed. The elves are usually pretty quick, so that's pretty normal there. Let's talk about some of the Gondor characters. There's 2. Unfortunately, Boromir is not in the game. Faramir might also have the Gondor trait. He's not in the game either. They're pretty average. There's not much to talk about there, actually. They're not very good characters. I would not recommend investing in them at this time. The dwarves, however, very, very interesting. Unfortunately, they're only in a group of 2. They're also accessible very late in the game, Fili and Keely, and Fro is early on. I have run into her one time in Arena, and that was about it. And I just want to kind of point that out really quickly, that Fro has the number 2 armor stat in the game. She is a tank, and that's very impressive, which makes me believe that the dwarves writ large are going to be very tanky going forward when they come out, when more of them come out. Whether it's Thorin's Company or other dwarves, alongside Gimli and whatever, this has the potential of being pretty good. Top 20 health, but top 2 armor stat. Keely, very high damage stat, top 5 in the game, top 10 health in the game, very solid stats. Armor's not too bad for a damage character as well. All the dwarves are kind of slow, but you kind of expect that from the lore side of things. And Philly, I believe he's the healer, and Keely's the damage dealer. Philly's the bard, I think, that heals. And his health is not super great, but his armor is pretty good for a healer, and focus and resistance like you would expect from those types of characters like above. They kind of share that as well. So, this is just kind of a breakdown of some of the light characters in the game, and I just wanted to share this with you in case you unlocked a character, maybe you were thinking about a character and wondering on whether or not you should invest in them. Honestly, a lot of these broken synergy ones, I would kind of leave them for just now until more characters come out. Some of them do have some standalone value, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to want to focus on the ones that have wider team availability as much as you possibly can anyways, unless they're crazy good, and have like a really strong stance like the Ironhide Troll, who we'll talk about in the Shadow video next. But otherwise, obviously, some of the best characters to focus on in this game is going to be Strider, Halbarad, if you can, the Rohirrim characters, and Pippin for campaign. Really, that's about it, but I wanted to kind of go over the reasonings as to why that is. And I hope that some of this was helpful. This is kind of some of the stuff that you might expect here on the Boilon channel, but obviously there's tons more as well. Hopefully we'll get some events, and we'll start talking about that too, because I'm quite known, at least in Marvel Strike Force, when it comes to breaking down events as well. So that's going to be the end of this video, everyone. And until next Lord of the Rings video, I will stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. I almost forgot my own line. Boilon signing out.